video, so I expect you to stay until the end. What is consumer law? I know you have been looking, you've probably been searching what is consumer law and came across this video, and we are going to go over it pretty simply. Over here at the Golden University, you're going to learn your rights, spot violations, and be able to move strategically. What is consumer law, right? A simple definition. Consumer law protects everyday people and personal transactions. It applies when you buy, borrow, finance, dispute, or use consumer services. It helps hold companies accountable for unfair, deceptive, inaccurate, or abusive practices. That is simply what consumer law is, and that's what it does. It's pretty much a set of laws that protects you against fraudulent and deceptive companies. Okay? Again, simple version, consumer law helps protect your money, your information, and your rights. Why consumer law matters, right? Protects your credit and personal information. So if you have to dispute inaccuracies on your credit report, consumer law is going to help you with that, right? Helps you challenge errors in unlawful reporting. Again, if you have to dispute negative items on your consumer report, the consumer law is going to help you do that, right? Also, going back to protect your credit and personal information, everybody just can't access your consumer reports or your credit reports, right? So, um, there's a section in the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that speaks about permissible purpose. So, anyone just can't view your consumer report, they have to have permissible purpose, right? Sets rules for debt collectors and creditors. This is one of the main reasons, and this is probably the most important, right? Because when you have rules in place to um, regulate these companies, right? And these debt collectors and creditors, then when they break the rules, Congress gives you what is called a private right of action, which means there's certain laws that you can bring forth in court when they violate your rights, okay? Gives you remedies when businesses violate the law, okay? And again, that's what that is there. Consumer law gives you certain private right of actions when companies violate your rights, okay? So pretty much consumer law is just something that you can use to make sure that companies aren't violating your personal information, are being predatory or being deceptive or lying, right? In order to cover all of that, Congress came up with consumer laws that help protect you against those certain things. Main areas of consumer law are credit reporting, okay, debt collection, auto finance and vehicle purchases, lending disclosures, identity and privacy issues, and consumer contracts and disputes. So these are the main areas of consumer law that, and really the most important, that you guys are going to go through, right? These are areas of consumer law that happen in real life. Where you see consumer law in real life, credit reports with inaccurate late payments, collections, or balances, okay? The FCRA is going to cover that. Debt collectors calling, writing, or filing lawsuits. You can use consumer law to help protect you against debt collectors and make sure that when they're filing lawsuits, they have all of the accurate information and they have a legal standing to even collect from you. Card deals with hidden fees, packed payments, or contract issues. Loan or credit card terms that were not clearly disclosed. Disputes where companies update information instead of properly investigating. That's they're all huge, but that's a really huge one too, right? Because that is your main leverage when it comes to the dispute process. And when I say the dispute process, I mean sending out letters to the credit bureaus to fix inaccuracies and negative items on your credit report and get them deleted, okay? Key laws you should know. These are the key laws that every consumer should know, okay? And we break them down on this channel. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you give me a follow and hit that bell so you never miss a class. These are short videos, but they're very potent, and we skip all of the legal jargon and get right to layman's terms on how consumer law helps you, how to fix your credit, debt collection issues, lawsuits from debt collectors or creditors, all of that great stuff. But here are the key laws that you should know. The FCRA. This specific law helps protect fair and accurate credit reporting. So this is going to cover furnishers of your credit report and also the credit bureaus. The FDCPA sets rules debt collectors must follow. So the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, specifically covers debt collectors and debt buyers. All right. It doesn't normally cover creditors that are collecting in their own name. So those charge-offs normally isn't governed by the FDCPA. Okay. TILA, Truth in Lending Act, requires clear disclosures in consumer lending. So this is the law that sets that transparency tone for when you are signing contracts and when companies have to disclose certain information from you so that you can, make informed decisions about your credit. Okay. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act bans discrimination in credit decisions. Okay. So there are a certain set of things that companies can do and that they can't do when it comes to credit decisions, making credit decisions. They cannot discriminate against you in certain instances. Okay. And this is not the video that we're going to go over all of these laws, but this is just a video where, you're like, what is consumer law to begin with? These are the main laws inside of that consumer law umbrella, because consumer law is pretty much a set of laws that, again, help protect you against deceptive and companies who violate your rights when it comes to credit. Okay. And then we have the FTC holder rule, and this can preserve consumer claims in certain finance purchases. You're mainly going to see that when you purchase a vehicle, right? It's going to be subject to that FTC holder rule. Okay. Common red flags and violations. And these are just a standard amongst all of these. Okay. Inaccurate account details, duplicate or reinserted information, debt collection harassment or false threats, missing or misleading loan disclosures, add-ons or terms you did not clearly agree to, failure to properly investigate a dispute. So these are some of the common red flags and violations in connection with all of these laws here. Okay. What to do if you notice a problem? Okay. Get your documents, review everything line by line, identify the specific issue, dispute or challenge it in writing, track your dates, responses, and evidence, because companies don't have all year to respond. They have certain deadlines that they have to meet, and then escalate strategically if needed. And I'm always going to point it out. You can see before you do anything, before you dispute, or before you send out anything, that's step 4. You got to get your documents together, right? You got to review everything line by line, make sure you know what's going on first, which is why understanding consumer law is important, because consumer law also gives you, it's pretty much a rule book, a playbook of what they're supposed to be doing, what they're not supposed to be doing, right? Identify the specific issue, okay, without giving them too much information, and then dispute or challenge it in writing, right? Track your dates and responses and evidence, and then escalate strategically if needed. But here at the Golden University, I teach you guys how to be strategic even through here. Matter of fact, this is being strategic. A part of being strategic is, again, getting your documents, reviewing everything line by line, identifying the specific issue before we even get to disputing. Because a lot of people, a company has violated them, whether that be a financial institution, a credit bureau, a debt collector, or a debt buyer, and they just go out, they watch a couple TikToks and then they go out swinging blindly. And you're not going to win like that, right? Just spewing out random laws in a letter and just putting it all together without understanding how these companies work and what the actual rules are. Because a lot of the times people go through dispute processes whether that be with for a credit card, a car, whatever the case may be, and they don't understand that certain rules, aka laws, apply to certain companies. So what one company is required to do may not be what another one is required to do. Okay, so understanding those things play a huge factor in being strategic. Because how else are you going to be strategic if you don't know the rules and you don't know the key players and what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do? Okay? What consumer law does not mean, okay? Again, it's not a magic removal. It does not mean that every count is removable just based off of you disputing. Sometimes companies are they gonna take it all the way, and you might have to take it to court, okay? Which is another reason why being strategic is so important over here. It's no automatic payout, okay? Just because you spot a violation, that's not the end. You have to take it all of the way. No skipping proof. You have to gather all of your proof and all of your evidence, which is why it's so important that when you are learning consumer law, when you're going through certain processes, you are not skipping any proof. You're documenting and keeping everything, right? No vague disputes. And what it does is it helps you understand rights, build evidence, and move strategically. Okay? That is what consumer law does. And again, what consumer law is that simple definition we went back to. It just protects everyday people in personal transactions, right? So when you go to borrow, when you go to finance, when you go to disputed collection, or any other consumer service, consumer law is a set of laws that govern these things. It's just a set of laws that protect you in personal transactions involving these things here: when you borrow, when you finance, when you dispute, or other consumer services. Okay, if you want to learn consumer law more in depth and you are one of those type of people, you're like, I do not want to be surface level with anything. I want to learn all of the strategies. I want to be strategic. I want to be ahead, okay, of the 90% of consumers who do not know their consumer rights. And I want to be ahead of 90% of the consumers who get sued and never show up, okay? Or they send out one round of disputes and then they quit because they think it's too hard, or they're trying to do it on their own with no strategy or foundation. This community is for you. All right, I'm going to leave it in the description box below, and I will see you in the next class.